Giving honor to the Most High Yah by way of Yahushua HaMashiach this day. I don't know why that's right there. John 5:39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and there they which testify of me, and you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I come in my Abba's name, you receive me not. But another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one of another, and seek not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think that I will accuse you to Abba. There is one that accused you, even Moses, in whom you trust. But had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 6 is the word. 1 Corinthians 13 and 6. Shalom, man. What's good with you, man? I hope everything good on your side. Say, rejoice not in iniquity, but rejoice in the truth. Bear all things, believe all things, hope all things, endure all things. So, in the journey that we're going down, we're on bear all things now. Of course, the Hebrew word for bear is nasah, which is to word. That's good to hear, man. It's nasah, which is to lift up or to bear. It's that noon, it's the shan and the olive. So you see how the sun pairs you to strength. When that's what you should think of. When you see that noon, that shan, and that olive, you're paired to strength. Well, the sun is pairing you to strength. So when we look at the sun pairing you to strength, I think the first thing that we'll look at is John chapter 8. About verse 34. Shalom, GP, man. You know what I'm saying? And see what we can gather from that as we venture down that. And we only have one thing remaining, and that'll be endure all things. And then we will have completed our journey down 1 Corinthians chapter 13 to see all the things that are encapsulated in your love for Yah not failing. Matter of fact, pause. Romans chapter 8 is what we'll deal with. Romans 8 first. Because bearing all things is going to have to start with this right here, what we talking about. So I'm going to pick it up at verse 29 and work it like that. And you like you saying, like, I was talking to, hey, Trina, how you doing? Everything good as it can be. I'll tell you that much. I was talking to a brother, man, yesterday, man, and I was telling him, man, he was just telling me a couple things, that he experienced and this, that, there, and the third. And when we look at the word itself, and I tell y'all this repeatedly, a lot of people don't actually believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to actually believe what this man is saying to you. And I've given y'all this example before, and I'm going to give it to you again in the most simplest bet. The most simplest term that I could put it. Most of our parents promised us monetary compensation if we brought particular grades home in school. And when you brought them grades home and they rewarded you, it wasn't just because of getting what they told you they were going to give you. It's that you put forth the effort to get that reward because they made a promise to you. And you believe what they promised to you because you had trust in them. So when it comes down with Yah, do you believe? That's why that Luke 16 says they got Moses and the prophets, hear them. A lot of people try to take this word, they try to make it academic and scream scholarship and all that there, man. And that's all well and good if that's the road you want to travel down. But at the end of the day, boy, y'all just want to see if you're going to believe me on the strength of my word that I'm a real dude. That I'm 100% real. That I'm an authentic individual who ain't got no reason to lie to you. And exactly what I say that I'm going to do, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And you're going to put your hope to receive that expectation of reward of what I promised you based off what I said to you. It's really just that simple. It ain't even that deep. People like blind faith. It ain't nothing to do with no blind faith. Do you believe he's solid and 100 in what he's saying? That he say this is what he gonna do, that you can consider that done. Because if you don't have a heart like that, then this word ain't gonna do nothing for you. That's why when we looked at that Genesis 50 and he said he nourished them or he support. So you got to understand something, right? When this man word come, when this gospel come, it's going to support you. It's going to sustain you. It's going to comfort you. And that word is speaking directly to your heart. Y'all seen it? Go look it up for yourself. Genesis 50 and 20. That word spake kindly to, he say, he spake to their leb, to their heart. This word got to speak to your heart, because if it don't resonate right here, this word ain't going to do nothing for you. It ain't going to do nothing for you. It ain't going to do nothing for you. You know what I'm saying? It ain't going to do nothing for you. And the only thing that we trying to do is bring forth this word. So not that I'm speaking to your heart, but just like what Peter quoted, which is in Psalm 78, that your hope and expectation might be in Elohim, and that you might trust in his salvation, and then bear whatever you got to bear and endure whatever you got to endure, so your love don't fail. Because I don't care what's going on around you. Ain't no excuse. Nothing should make you stop loving this man. I don't care what's going on around you. I don't care what's happening. You got to keep on going. Shalom, man. You got to keep on hold. You got to hold that down. But 8 and 29, Romans. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also esteemed. What shall we say to these things? If Elohim be for us, who can be against us? That's what we seen when we were looking at Joseph. Elohim was for Joseph. So it didn't matter that his brothers were against him. It didn't matter that his master's wife lied on him, because Yah was for him. It doesn't matter. See, pause. Let me show y'all something real quick. Isaiah 54, commonly misquoted script. We done went over it in the past, but like I told you, I'm trying to be more consciously aware of bringing things to your remembrance, of things that have to wait. We're going to have to wait. Isaiah 54 and 17. And it says, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahuwah, and their righteousness is of me, saith Yahuwah. See, most of the time when people read this verse, they just read the no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and they stop. They don't read the rest of it. So you got to read the rest of it, because you got to understand whom he is talking to. Not only did he say whatever weapon that is formed against you will not prosper, he said, but every tongue that will try to come up against you in judgment, you will condemn their words. Then in the midst of that, he said, this is the heritage or the inheritance, because remember, heritage is just really meaning an inheritance. This is an inheritance of the servants of Yahuwah, and their righteousness is of me. So you inherit that. So if you inherit that by reason because you are a son. That goes in the fact of what we just read in Romans, where he said they were predestinated. They were conformed to the image of his son. They were called. He has chosen you aforetime to be able to do this. Okay, I got you. So when you look at what we seen with Joseph, his brothers formed a weapon against him. It did not prosper because of the evil that they thought to do to him. Many souls were saved alive because of that work, because that was the will of Yahuwah. Elohim was with him. But then we turn around and we look at it in this aspect. When they came to speak against him, anyone who came against him, he condemned their word. It's no different than when they rose up against Yahushua. They formed a weapon against this man. They were trying to kill him. They killed him. They tried to find false witnesses. They said many things against him, and he condemned them. So you got to realize this is the inheritance of the sons and daughters of Elohim. Nothing that was formed against you is going to prosper. Whatever these individuals do, it's going to work out for your good. Let's go back to Romans 8. It's going to work out for your good based on the will of Elohim. I think we read that verse. Yeah, it's up there in verse 28, what I was referring to. We know all things work together for good to them that love Elohim, and to them who are called according to his purpose. So if you love Elohim and he called you according to his purpose, what seems to be evil or what seems to be wrong is going to work out for your good, because in this he is going to be esteemed. Now let's read verse 32 of Romans chapter 8. So remember this here, right? Don't just be loosely throwing out stuff and saying, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, because your tongue should be able to condemn those in judgment, meaning not condemning somebody by saying you going to hell, but condemning what they saying that is right is actually wrong according to the standard of Yahuwah. You would be able to discern and say, no, that is not proper judgment. Where do we see examples of Yahushua condemning them in judgment? When he was healing people on the Shabbat, and he was telling them, you say, you hypocrites, don't you take the ass to the watering hole? Don't you take your ox to the stall and feed him? And you mean to tell me this woman who's been bound by Hashatan for 18 years, she shouldn't be loose from her infirmity? and their mouths were shut. They were condemned. Or when they came at him saying, by whose authority do you do these words? He said, if you tell me by what authority, he said, you answer me this, and I'll tell you by what authority I do this by. John the Baptist, his immersion. Was it of man or was it of Shamahim? He condemned them in judgment because he's let them know they were wrong. See, you can't always hear judgment and thinking of that meaning thinking shafat. We consuming somebody. Sometimes it's the mishpat and you showing the strength of the words of the covenant. You correcting them. Well, that's not right. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's why he say, judge not lest you be judged. Don't tell about somebody's son they doing is wrong and you wrong. But even if it ain't just sinning against sinning, you should be able to discern between good and evil by using the word. You should be able to do that. You should be able, ain't no different, man. Most of us come from the street, man. Y'all know what time it is. The older dudes will be back in the day, tell you, boy, get your butt off this block. Boy, you gonna go to jail. Boy, you don't want to come out here and do what we doing and go to jail. But it didn't resonate because he out here selling the dope too. So he telling you not to do something that you doing, and you doing the same thing. So you ain't feeling that. But if somebody who been out there in them streets and done changed their life, and they say, young blood, boy, you need to get off that block, boy. Because boy, they were going to have boom, boom, boom. They going to have to hold that in the manner of respect because they know, well, bro was out here and he suffered them consequences. He changed his life. He ain't out here no more. I got to respect it when big bro tell me, hey, man, big homie say, boy, we got to get off that block. Boy, this ain't the way to go. It's that simple. That's it. That's it. So guess what? If you in the word and people are doing things that wrong, you living upright, you can tell them that, boy, that's wrong, boy. Boy, I'm not stamping that. I don't care who it is. I don't care how cool you is with them. But they just going to have to be mad. Boy, I'm not stamping that, cuz. Boy, you know it is no different than, boy, you know you can go to hell for that. Boy, you tripping. What's the difference of that of telling the little homie on the block? Boy, you know you can go to jail. Boy, the white folks got a place for you now. You bugging. See, we done found out we bruised and this, that, there, and the third. And we just started turning our hair for stuff we know ain't right. Just because, nah, man. Nah, boy, I'm not stamping that, cuz. You dead wrong for that. And guess what ends up happening? They begin to form weapons against you. And when they form these weapons against you, why are they forming these weapons? Because you the servant of Yahuwah. That's your inheritance. To be able to say what's right and what's wrong. You ain't even got to necessarily be pinpointing a specific individual. Book of Amos say they hate him who rebuke in the gate. Psalms 37 tell you the righteous kept wisdom in his mouth and judgment in it. Say the law Yahuwah is in his heart and judgment's in his tongue. He coming to say, boy, this stuff ain't right. People's hearts get pricked because instead of the word talking to their heart, it's cutting their heart. When if the word talking to your heart, you'll come and put down whatever things you ain't got no business carrying. You'll put them down so you can be able to embrace your God. And that's what's not happening. That's what's not happening. People not putting this stuff down because they don't really want to embrace Elohim. You know what I'm saying? They don't. But see, that come into what we talking about bearing, because now you got to lift up your. Let me get to it, because you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get on no tangent. Nevertheless, verse 32. He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of Elohim's elect? It is Elohim that justify. Who gonna lay something at their feet? He gonna say, Sadak, I'm gonna justify this man. I'm gonna do it. He says, who is thee that condemn? It is Hamashiach that died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of Elohim, who make intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Hamashiach? Shall tribulation? So a little trouble? Is that going to cause you to go sin and lose your faith? Or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? He says, as is written, for thy sake, we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. So we already know for this man's sake, we're going to have to take that. He said, nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. So we are more than a conqueror through this man's love, which goes back to him nourishing you, that goes back to him comforting you and speaking to your heart. That's how you know this, because he say, for I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor malachim, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Yahushua HaMashiach, our master. I say this to all those who can hear the sound of my voice. You supposed to feel the same way. You supposed to be, see, you'll have somebody, if you was to stand in front of some people right now and say what Paul said right here, boy, they'll tell you proud. You lifted up in your heart. And I'm going to tell you talking to a real live imbecile. Because you supposed to be that fully persuaded in the promises and word of the living Elohim, whose name of Yahuwah of hosts, who is blessed forever, that you can say, boy, I'm fully persuaded. Because what are you fully persuaded by? His word. That's what you persuaded by. Ain't nothing finna separate me from this man. Nigga, is you stupid? That's how you supposed to feel. You supposed to be that bold. Yes, you supposed to be proud of your Elohim. That book say, blessed is the people who have the Elohim, whose name is Yahuwah, for their help. You supposed to feel that way. That's what that word spoke to your heart. How you supposed to. How would you not have such an unwavering, unbreakable confidence like that? Shalom, Brother Lee. How you doing, man? You supposed to feel that way. Don't let nobody tell you no different. And get what? And I told y'all this before. Just like that man who was trying to get his daughter raised from the dead, and he said, help me die with my unbelief. Don't be ashamed to say, man, my faith weak. Ain't no shame in it. Because get what? If people supposed to bear that burden and lift you on up and give you strength where you're weak. Since I said that, Romans 15:1. There ain't no shame in it. Everybody get weak. You flesh and blood. Didn't that man say, watch and pray? For the Ruach is willing, but the flesh is weak. Come on, man. If a Mashiach had to be strengthened itself, ain't no shame in that. And don't let nobody make you feel shame about it. And don't be ashamed to say, boy, my faith weak right now. Somebody help me with my unbelief. Don't be ashamed. How else you going to be able to solve the problem unless you state it exists? If a nigga ridicule you about it, then you know they wasn't a Yahuwah in the first place. So don't hold that to Yahuwah charge. Just know that's an evil bastard and just keep on moving. Romans 15:1. He say, we then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. For even the Mashiach pleased not himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproach thee fell on me. So the strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. Well, we already read in Isaiah 53 how Yahushua came to bear our infirmities. But let's continue as we look at bearing all things. Let's take ourselves over here to Luke chapter 14, right? We're going to take this. We're going to be brief this evening. It ain't going to be too long. Because I'm saving it to transition to the other word for bear, of which we did not use. Or for burden. I got another word for burden that I ain't really hit as well. So the other part I might can save till we get everybody in person Shabbat day. But we'll see how that works. Matter of fact, hold off on the Luke. Come over here to Psalms 38. I don't think I did Psalms 38 last week with the word that's there. So we can get that out, get that out of the way right now. Let's still go into what I was mentioning in Luke. Psalms 38:1, right? Psalms 38:1. It says, O Yahuwah, rebuke me not in thy wrath, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. For thy arrows stick fast in me, and thy hand press me sore. And that goes back into how he didn't spare his son. He touching on that. There's no soundness in my flesh because of thine anger, neither burden they are too heavy for me. My wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. I'm troubled, I'm bowed down. Greatly I go mourning all the day long. For my loins are filled with a loathsome disease, and there's no soundness in my flesh. I am feeble and sore broken. I have roared by reason of the disquietness of my heart. Yahuwah, all my desire is before thee, and my groaning is not hid from thee. My heart pant, my strength fail. As for the light of my eyes, it is gone from me. My lovers and my friends stand aloof from my sore, and my kinsmen stand afar off. Now, you know it's Wednesday, so we try to be brief. So when you look at that verse 11, when he say, my kinsmen stand afar off, again, just bringing stuff back to your remembrance so you can set the stage that this is speaking of Hamashiach. This is speaking of what he suffered for our sake and the burden of which he carried. And we're going to touch the word for burden here in just a moment. Let's come over here to Matthew 26 real quick, like 26 and 57. Just sit back and look how he said his kinsmen were far off. His friends and his lovers, they were aloof from his sore. He say, and they that lay hold on Yahoo, this is 26 and 57, they that lay hold on Yahusha led him away to Capheus, the high priest, where the scribes and elders were assembled. But Peter followed him afar off into the high priest's palace and went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now, why did we just read this here? Because now you see why it mentioned why Peter was way off in the cut. Because he said that his friends and his lovers were aloof from his sore. Well, what was his sore? He said he was wounded for your transgressions. So that was his sore. That was his wound. Because you see in verse 5, he said his wounds are stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness. Well, whose foolishness was it? It was our foolishness. Remember, he became sin who knew no sin so that we can be reconciled to Elohim. So the odor, the stench that was being given off, it's kind of like what he said in Amos and in Isaiah, like, you keep them sacrifices. No, that don't do nothing for me. Say he troubled and he bowed down and he go mourning all the day long. And I take you back to when he said he was exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Bowed down, praying, he feeble and sore broken. He's roared by the reason of the disquietness of his heart because he was praying the whole time. See, let me show y'all something of what ended up happening, what his apostles were not able to do for him at that particular juncture. Matthew 26 and 36. And it sit back to show that he had to rely strictly on Yahuwah at that instance. This is why Yahuwah sent to Malachim to give him strength at that particular time, to help bear that burden with him. The same way that we mentioned last week, how we're supposed to bear each other's burden together, because that is what the master himself did. And when you can bear all things or carry your burden, whichever burden that is that you may have to carry, one burden is universal, then your soul can be spared. Then come Yahusha with them unto a place called Jessamine, and saith unto the disciples, sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then he saith he unto them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. He went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Abba, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he come unto the disciples and find them asleep, and saith unto Peter, what? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The Ruach indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And he went away again the second time and prayed, saying, O my Abba, if this cup may not pass from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them and went away again and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then come he to his disciples and saith unto them, sleep on now and take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hand of sinners. Rise, let us be going. Behold, he is at hand that doth betray me. So when we look at this exchange, and of course that's in Luke where you read where the Malachim come and strengthen him. Luke 23 to be specific. You see how he was feeble, sore, and broken. He's roaring by the reason of the disquietness of his heart, and that his desire was before Yahuwah the whole time. And how his friends were after him, and they that seek after my life, they lay in snares, and they that seek my hurt speak mischievous things against me, and imagine lies all day long. All because his iniquities were over his head, and that burden was too heavy for him. So when we look at that burden being too heavy for him, let's take ourselves over here to Mark chapter 15. Mark chapter 15. Mark chapter 15, what we want here, man? About verse 16 is sufficient. I think I want to grab 1 Corinthians chapter 10 because it just came to my mind just now. Let me make sure that's what I want. Yeah, that's a little different. Mark 15 and 16. And the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band. And they clothed him with purple, and platted a crown of thorns, and put it on about his head, and began to salute him. Hail, Malach of the Yahudim. And they smote him on the head with the reed, and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him and put his own clothes on him and led him out to crucify him. And they compelled one Simon of Cyrene who passed by coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his stake. So they seen someone and they compelled him, come, carry this burden. Because at that particular time he was weak. Come carry this burden for him. Can you come carry this burden? Because we need somebody to come over here and carry this for him. And see, Luke 23 tell you the same thing. Probably about what? Verse 26? Let's come over and look at it. Luke 23 and 26. The reason why we're looking at this is the strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. So at this particular time, you seeing somebody coming and bearing Yahushua's burden, helping him carry that said burden. He said they led him away, and as they led him away, they lay hold upon one Simon a Cyrenian coming out of the country, and on him they laid the stake, that he might bear it after Yahushua. Now listen what he said, right? They laid the stake on him that he might bear it after the master. So let's look at something. Pause. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Ecclesiastes 2 on what? Verse 12. Damn, I need to comb my hair, man. He said, I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can a man do that come after the king, even that which have already been done? So reason why I'm painting it like this here is, what can the person who's coming after the king do? Now remember, to bear is nasa, or to lift up, or to bear. You see an individual lifting up this stake. The word for burden in that Psalms 38 is masa. It's burden, lifting up, uplifting, or something which lifts up the soul or carrying. And you have a meme, a shan, and an olive. So we can sit back and see how the blood will pair you to the strength, or pair you to the ox, or pair you to the head. You know what I'm saying? Because that burden was for him to shed his blood. Him shedding his blood is what is actually going to carry you, or lift you, or uplift you, or bear your iniquities. Let's look and see in that in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 28. So those who coming after the king, they have to do the same thing. Simon Cyrene, as is stated in Luke, he bared the cross after Yahushua. So he's coming after him or behind him. So it shows us how we have to bear all things coming behind the master, because he did it first. Nine and 24. Hebrews 9 and 24. He say, for Hamashiach is not entered to Kadesh places made with hands, which are the figures of the truth, but in the Shamahim itself, now to appear in the presence of Elohim for us. Nor yet that he should offer himself often as the high priest enter into the Kadesh place every year with blood of others. But then he must often have suffered since the foundation of the world. But now once in the end of the world have he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. As it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So Hamashiach once suffered to bear the sins of many. And unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation. So this one man, remember he say, the reproaches of them that reproach thee fell on me. He said, this burden is heavy over me. He said, yet my desire is before Yahuwah. Because he's seeking to not only bear your sins, but to forgive your sins, or to lift up and to bear them, which means he has to be lifted up. And you see Simon Cyrene carrying that stake behind him. Well, why is this important with him carrying this stake behind him? Let's take a look at Galatians chapter 6 before we actually get to this Luke 14. Galatians 6 and 5. It says, for every man shall bear his own burden. Pause. Now I'll go ahead and get Luke 14. Everybody's got to bear his own burden. Well, what is this here that you got to bear? Because we could look at certain things about about burdens with certain individuals. You know, you can sit back and look at the burden of what Joseph took on, being sold by his brother, 14 and 25 of Luke, sold by his brothers, going into Egypt. He had to bear that burden. Going into that prison cell, he had to bear that burden. You know what I'm saying? Different individuals. Isaiah walking around naked, he had to bear that burden. Ezekiel being told to eat dung, that was a burden that he had to bear. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think of a couple more other people. Elijah and him going up against Ahab and doing what he had to do in the 18th chapter of that verse, that's what he had to bear because they knew he was the one who prayed so that it wouldn't rain. The burden that Hezekiah had to bear and dealing with Sennacherib. It goes on and on and on. All of these individuals were called according to the purpose of Elohim because they loved him and everything worked out for their good. But the thing that they had to deal with, they had to deal with that themselves. Nevertheless, 14 and 25. And then and the other person in the New Testament, why we can mention with Paul, all the things that Paul bear, those were his burdens, because he's carrying the stake of a Mashiach. Because you got to remember, ought not a Mashiach had suffered to enter into his esteem. And if you suffer with him, you're going to reign with him. So you have to be able to bear those burdens and able to receive your inheritance. If no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rise up against you in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahuwah, and their righteousness is of me. So what is that righteousness? That righteousness is which is of faith. It's not the righteousness which is of the law, because at that point, it's not of Yahuwah, it's of yourself. But when you trust and believe in Yahuwah, key point, remember heritage. Look the word up in Hebrew for yourself. That's inheritance. Only sons receive inheritances, and you can only become a son if you are born again, and you can only be born again because you believed in Yahuwah and he counted to you for righteousness. There is no way around that. There's no way around that. Faith is what will cause you to be able to bear all things and then therefore endure all things. You're not going to be able to bear anything if you don't believe. Nevertheless, and there went great multitudes with them, and when he turned and said unto them, if any man come unto me, and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, and yea, his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whosoever doth not bear his stake and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you intending to build a tower sit not down first and count the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, lest happily after he have laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king going to make war against another king sit not down first and consult whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that come against him with 20,000? Or else while the other is yet a great way off, he send an ambassage and desire conditions of shalom. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsake not all that he have, cannot be my disciple. Look at the key thing of what he stated. If you do not bear your cross, if you do not bear your stake, you cannot be his disciple. So to bear all things, and it's taking us right back to what we looked at in Psalms 38, with verse 4 being specific, and you see how this man's blood is paying you the strength, because your strength to bear all things is coming through him. There's a reason why he told you need to bear that stake, because you need to bear about his death in your body. The things that he endured and he encountered, you have to see. That's the thing. Ain't nobody telling nobody about you. Like I was talking to a brother, like I said yesterday, man, and he was talking about how every brew want to say, Deuteronomy 28, the reason why people can't come up, and this, that, there, and the third. And I'm like, the curses in Deuteronomy 28 are not individually; it's for the people as a whole. It's for the people as a whole. Then you have some people say, if you're not doing this or you're not doing that, you must be sinning. Now you're doing what Job's friends did to him. Because they seen this happen to him and this happened to him and that happened to him. They say, oh, you had to be sinning. Because everybody has a convoluted view of what it means for an individual for Yah to be with them. And that's unfortunate. You know what I'm saying? But when it all boils down to is it doesn't matter if an individual is successful. It doesn't matter if an individual is poor. Every single solitary individual got to bear that stake of a Mashiach for him to be able to even teach you. Because you know the word for disciple is taladim or taught one. So for him to be able to even teach you, you have to be willing to do this. Luke 9:23, just on general principle. Just on general principle. I'll pick it up at 20. I'm just reading this here for general principle. Because this is what happens if you're going to bear all things. If you bear all things or bear those burdens, you got to remember, we just read it. He bare the sins of many in order to hand them salvation, of which we discussed to an extent Shabbat day. But listen what he say. I'll start at 18. It come to pass as he was alone praying, his disciples were with him. He asked them, saying, whom say the people that I am? They answering said, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah. Others said that one of the old prophets is risen again. He said unto them, but whom say ye that I am? Peter answering said, the Hamashiach of Elohim. And he straightly charged them and commanded them to tell no man that thing. Listen to what this man said, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be slain and be raised the third day. So you got to be willing to bear that. Are you willing to suffer many things? Are you willing to be rejected of elders, priests, scribes, or people, period? And are you willing to be slain? And do you believe that you'll be resurrected from the dead if you happen to be slain? See, matter of fact, let's go to Revelation 6. We'll come back to Luke chapter 9. I just like reading Revelation 6 when we're dealing with things of this nature, because I just want you to hear what this man has manifested in your eyesight through this text. Now, whether you believe it or not, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I believe it myself personally. I can't speak for nobody else. Revelation chapter 6 and verse 9. And listen what happened. Because these are men who had to bear something. They had to suffer something. They had to be rejected. They were killed. Look what he told them. And when he opened the fifth seal, he saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Elohim and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, O Yahuwah Kadash and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, unto their fellow servants also, and their brethren. Remember, these are the heritage of the servants of Yahuwah, that should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. So hold on, just for a little side note, Revelation 14. So he told these men right here, Revelation 14:12. He told these men, take these white robes, man. Rest for a little while. Get your little rest, man. You got some more fellow servants, some more of your brothers coming here to just be easy. Now you should know that that white robe, that's that fine linen, which is the righteousness of the saints, the kased, the kadeshim, however you want to, whatever adjective you want to use, that's for you. You have to believe that once you say I'm bearing that cross, I'm picking that stake up, you saying you willing to take that. You're willing to bear that in your body. You're willing to live that. You're willing to lift that. Not only that, when you're willing to lift up that stake and carry it, that means you're willing to lift up the name of Yahushua HaMashiach to the esteem of Abba and Elohim, whose name is Yahuwah, and that his name should be greatly praised and honored and esteemed by everyone you come across, because you bear the death of Yahushua in your mortal body, that his life may be manifested in your mortal body in the same token, if you understand what I just said. Nevertheless, Revelation 14:12. Here's the patience of the Kased, and here are they that keep the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yahushua. And I heard a voice from Shamahim saying unto me, write, Baruch are the dead which die in the Yahuwah from henceforth, yea, saith the Ruach, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. So you got to believe that, because Yahushua works followed him. That's why he got resurrected. Let's go back to Luke, chapter 9. You have to believe that. Or because if you don't, then you're not going to bear that state. You're not going to be able to take that. You're not going to be able to endure it. It's going to be too much for you. Luke 9:22 one more time. And after we get finished with Luke, I'll swing to Hebrew chapter 12, work our way back to Galatians chapter 6, and try to slide our way on out the door. Saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be slain and be raised the third day. And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake daily and follow me. So that means you would have to be willing to bear. Because remember, he died when he was placed upon the stake, he died to sin. It's like what Romans chapter 6 said. He died to sin once. So when we looking at bearing all things, we looking at being able to endure and nail sin and mortify it in our mortal bodies and bear this flesh which seeks to be contrary to the word of Elohim, but allowing the word of Elohim that is in our heart to be able to overpower said flesh and live unto the will of Elohim until we exit. Pause. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 1. He say, for as much then as a Mashiach hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, for he that suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin, that he should no longer live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of Elohim. So now when you consider that you're bearing all things, you're no longer living to the lust of the flesh, nor the lust of men, but you're living to the will of Elohim. You're living to do what, and we talked about this when we went in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. You're willing to live to the things that bring pleasure to the living Elohim under Shamahim, that praise and honor might redound unto his name. You know, as Paul put it, thanks be to Elohim for this unspeakable gift. Do you know how hard it is to really fully, quantify with words the gift of faith and what that means? Do you know how hard that is to express? And I'm gonna just be honest with you. I sit back, man, and I did because I see a certain thing, man, and I listen to stuff just because I like to just hear people's perspective. Sometimes I just be trying to understand. I'm not gonna go into detail. I was listening to son trying to come to a conclusion of what these people was talking about in regards to something, and I'm like, I don't know what these niggas talking about. You know what I'm saying? This ain't making no sense. Like, what's the issue? What's the beef? But I could have overlooked something. I don't know. I haven't listened to it in its totality, so I have to reserve judgment on that because I haven't listened to it in its totality. But it's like, man, it's almost quote unquote 2019. Niggas still arguing. Still arguing. And people faith still weak. You know what I'm saying? And they not going to be able to bear what they need to bear in order to endure. Because when we see this verse 24, right, and this Luke 9, and he say, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. Like, we not realizing that what we read earlier in Psalms 38 was pointing to us to an individual who was willing to lose something because of their trust in Yahuwah, even when evil was knocking at his door, when even individuals were plotting. He said, my desire is to Yahuwah. When these people came to grab a Mashiach and take him and kill him, he said, Abba, in my hands I commend thy Ruach. Abba, forgive them, they know not what they do. It is finished. He said, this day you will be with me in paradise. His desire was always before his Elohim, before his Abba, the whole entire time. He said, for this cause I came into the world, and for this cause that I was born, that everyone that is of the truth may hear my voice. His desire was, Abba, if it be possible, let this cup pass. Nevertheless, not my will be done, but thy will be done. His desire was always to his Abba, not to his own lusts, not to his own desires. And that's when we talking about bearing all things, that's what we have to get to. We have to get to the point that our desire is of Yahuwah and before Yahuwah, and not to fulfill our own desire. If we seek to bear all things, because when he's telling you to bear this stake, and he's saying if you don't bear it, you can't be his disciple. And that you got to take this up daily and follow him. And we seen that with Simon Cyrene, that they compelled him to bear the stake to come after Yahusha. And we read in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 that what can we do that come after the king, but that which has already been done. And when we see that the king has bared his stake and was nailed to that stake and died for our sins and suffered in the flesh to sin not, then that's what we have to do to bear all things. That way our love never fails. Whatever it is that we must bear. That way nothing can separate us from the love of a Mashiach. That's why we could stand up and say, I'm fully persuaded, and speak with a level of boldness or confidence that an individual would misconstrue for pride. He said, for what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? For whosoever shall be ashamed of me and of my words, him shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he come in his own esteem and in his Abba's and of the Kadash Malakim. But I tell you of a truth, there be some standing here which shall not taste death till they see the kingdom of Elohim. Y'all, if it be y'all's will, that could be the case for some of y'all. Y'all knows. Don't let nobody be able to tell you, oh, no, shoot. Y'all knows. I can't say, oh, no, y'all, shoot. I can't say that. Y'all know you might stand right here and not taste death. Meaning literally. Not taste death. Don't taste no second death. Some of y'all, some people going to stand alive and literally not taste death and see the kingdom of Elohim. Meaning they not going to die a physical death. Don't let nobody tell you that. There's some people who are not ever going to die. Never. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about in the physical sense. If you live in a Mashiach and a Mashiach and you, then of course you'll never taste death, because the second death will have no power. But there are some people who are written, names are written in Shamahim, that at the time appointed, when everything concludes, that they were born and they never died. They never went to sleep. Yes, that is true. That is going to happen. Back to Galatians chapter 6 so we can conclude. 6 and 5. For every man shall bear his own burden. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teach in all good things. Be not deceived. Elohim is not mocked. For whatsoever man sow, that shall he also reap. For he that sowed to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, and he that sowed to the Ruach shall of the Ruach reap everlasting life. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are the household of the faith. You see how large a letter I have written unto you with my own hand. As many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer the persecution for the sake of a Mashiach. See, now I'm going to keep it real. He telling you about people who constraining people to be circumcised, or unless they should suffer persecution or bear that burden of being rejected, like we read in Luke, like we discussed with Joseph. And how do they do that now? We the Israelites, we the Israelites, we the Israelites, we the Israelites. Do you know what I'm saying? And have you boasting and bragging in your flesh rather than taking up that stake and coming after the master and willing to be rejected and suffer for his name's sake. Because you got a lot of individuals, I don't care what they say out their mouth. They enemies of the stake of a Mashiach because they mind earthly things and they God is their belly and their end is destruction. And if they God is their belly, that means they curse what they father Satan, because you of your father the devil and the lust of your father you will do, because Satan was cursed to go about his belly or to continue to operate according to his desires. That's what he means when he say your Elohim is your belly. Meats for the belly and belly for the meats, but Elohim will destroy it and them, because individuals who go about their belly are concerned with fulfilling their own selfish, lustful desires, which is why Elohim cannot bless them. That's why they can't attain eternal life. So that's why they'd rather boast in their flesh. Boast that you were Hebrew. Boast that you were Israelite. I'm from this tribe. I'm from that tribe. When he told you that you would not be called, he said in the place that you would not call the people, you'll be called the sons of Elohim. You don't hear too many of them stating they're a son of Elohim. You got men bold enough to say, don't come against the prophets. You're not a prophet because you read out this book, cuz. If y'all didn't appear to you in a vision or a dream, you lying. You're not a prophet just because you read out the book. That means everybody a prophet if they read out the book. Let's use common sense and use what y'all determined to be a prophet. What prophecy are you speaking? When did you stand up and say, thus saith Yahuwah, and you said something that was going to happen before it happened? Then you ain't no prophet. You just a nigga standing outside yelling at people. And thinking if you use certain catchwords and buzzwords that will manipulate them or intimidate them to listen to what you're saying. But yet Hamashiach is not being preached. You're not being told to bear his suffering. You're not told to bear his persecution. You don't want to take that stake because that's what it means. Because we could jump off in that. Also in a likewise with bearing all things. Because that means you got to be willing to take that persecution. Because bearing that stake, that's what that was. That was persecution. That was rejection, suffering, and persecution. Could you be willing to bear persecution for the word's sake? Because that's what that means, to bear all things. Because then once you bear that, you can endure said persecution. You can endure said suffering, which you cannot do unless you believed and hoped from the jump street of an expectation of reward in the individual who promised it. Nevertheless, as many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the sake of a Mashiach. For neither they themselves who are circumcised keep Torah, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may esteem in your flesh. But Elohim forbid that I should esteem, save in the stake of our master, Yahushua HaMashiach, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. So he's sitting back. Now listen what Paul's stating, right? Let's just keep it high. Most brews, right? I see them do it all the time. How many people you done won to the truth? Because they think winning somebody to the truth is telling them they're an Israelite. It is not. It is not. Like I said, I was talking to a brother yesterday, man. He was like, well, what does this mean in Hebrews 10 if there ain't no sacrifice for sins after receiving knowledge of the truth? It's a lot of people still got to sacrifice for sin because you being told you an Israelite is not the knowledge of the truth. And if anybody tell you that's the knowledge of the truth, they lying to you. Knowledge of the truth, the receiving the knowledge of the truth is receiving, because what is knowledge of the truth? That's the Amat. We just talked about it last week, the scripture of truth. So you think the scripture of truth is about you being an Israelite? That's foolish. That's foolish and vain. Scripture of truth is bearing witness to the way to life and the truth, which is Yahushua HaMashiach, the manifestation and revelation of the salvation of the living Elohim. So once you've received that knowledge and you sin willfully, no, there's no sacrifice for sin for you. Because there's no sacrifice of sin for willful sin in the law. So when you turn around and you look at it, this man say, I will esteem and nothing but the stake of Yah. Because he say, hey man, Yahushua, he said, the world is dead to me and I'm dead to the world. I'm dead to the world's desires and I'm dead to my own desire. What do you mean? I'm not moved by that. I don't want to see. Once you see a nigga who moved by the world, you know John already told you that the love of Elohim ain't in him. You can't love the world and love Yah at the same time. They're a contradiction. They're diametrically opposed to one another. He say, for in Yahushua HaMashiach, neither circumcision avail anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. And as many as walk according to this rule, shalom be on them, and mercy upon the Yasharal Elohim. From henceforth, let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Master Yahushua. Brethren, the grace of our Master Yahushua be with your Ruach. Amen. So, he said in his body, he's bearing the marks. Crucifixion, persecution, suffering. So Yahuwah willing on Shabbat, that's where we pick this up at. That if you're bearing all things or you're bearing his stake, you are willing to bear, to suffer, be persecuted, and be rejected for the name of the living Elohim and his only begotten son. So hallelujah for Yahushua and the word. So I just want y'all to think about that and consider that. Weigh that in your heart. Let that rest in your minds and meditate upon it. Because Yahuwah willing, when we pick it up again, we will look at people who bared persecution, suffering, and rejection for the word, which means they took us. Remember, you can't do nothing but do what came before you as far as the king is concerned. The king bared that stake and suffered and were persecuted and rejected. And if you coming behind him like Simon Cyrene were coming behind him with that stake, you can't do nothing but suffer, be rejected, and be persecuted yourself. That's why he said, if they persecuted me, they'll persecute you. The servant is not above his master. If they hated me, they'll hate you too. That's why I tell you these things so you not be offended. Because you're going to have to bear this if you're going to come after me. If you're going to take up this stake, knowing you taking up this stake, that's an example of his death, then you got to be willing to take everything that led up to his death. And if you not, If you not, then your love is going to fail. But I bless everybody out the house of y'all in the name of Yahushua. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Y'all willing. Shabbat, we'll pick it up and do it again. Well, this for the time being, I say good evening.